This episode of the MOC Squad was filmed in front of a live, members-only audience. This episode of the MOC Squad was filmed in front of a live,
Sorry about that. Forgot to unclick the loop button on the intro there. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Rob.
Hello there.
How's it going?
It's going well. Welcome to another Burnettwork member call. We didn't do a lot. You were somewhere last week having fun.
You know, kind of end of summer situations going on, and we had an opportunity to go camping, so we took off to do a little camping trip.
Fantastic. Was it fun?
So it was a lot of fun. You know, there's a place similar to Airbnb. There's a website called Hip Camps where people basically have plots of land or property where you can just, you know, pick up a couple of nights and go and camp. And we have a little vintage camper trailer that we
oh really
on. Yeah, it's looks like a little bubble, and then we just took it out for the weekend. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Yeah, it's a blast, and it was one of those, you know, kind of very last minute opportunity just came up out of nowhere, so we're gonna go ahead and jump and take advantage of it. So we appreciate everybody's patience since we haven't had one of our chats in a while, but
and we appreciate you facilitating these chats.
It's my pleasure. This is a highlight of my week. So, but welcome everybody. We're here on the live members only chat. There's been a few questions from new members recently on how to get access to the chat. You should have gotten a message in the Burnettworks YouTube channel with the announcement of the chat coming up, and that has the Zoom link. Where you can then join us and spend a little bit of time here.
Join us.
Chatting
That's what people that say.
Chatting with the Viceroy of Verisimilitude himself, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. So, Rob, you've had a busy week. Now, did I hear that you have been back on Campia recently? Is that correct?
Yes, on his podcast, he asked me to come back, so I've been doing Mondays and Wednesdays. It's very chill. Okay. It's only an hour long. I just go in, do it, and then leave, which is good because, you know, I've been working on a number. Obviously, we're finishing up our film, The White Devils, or just called now White Devils. Drop the. It's cleaner.
Drop the.
So it's, you know, and then there's a new project that we're going to be doing that I actually can talk about, I guess, on this member call. So
nice.
Things are moving forward in that direction because it's very exciting. It's a new big project. Something I've never done before that I'm delving into with some really great people, and you will be hearing all about it.
Sounds great.
I guess you'll be hearing all about it today.
Hey, let's go ahead and let our cadre of friends who was waiting patiently to join us here today. So let's go ahead and I know this is Rob's favorite part, so we're gonna do
the matrix of people,
the cascade of fans. So here we go. We're gonna admit everybody in, and we're gonna say welcome to all of those joining us here. RM, who just spent I saw a little bit of last night's show with you and RM, and Lael, having a nice chat about Ahsoka. Yeah, so welcome everybody, and then let me just go ahead and switch back to view mode here so we can get Rob front and center as we add new members to the group. But for some reason, as people are pouring in, your name keeps falling down on the list here, so I can't quite grab you. So there we go. There's Rob. And remember, folks, when you come into the chat, to the Zoom call, there's a button at the bottom of the Zoom window there that lets you raise your hand. So just raise your hand, and I will take you on the order in which you raise your hand. We want to stick to 7 minutes today, Rob. Is that what we're doing?
7 minutes in heaven, yes.
Perfect. And we have first coming up I don't know if you saw the great pictures that Alon put together of you.
Oh, I put it out. I put it on Instagram. People love it.
So I had sent the pictures to Alon, and I said, Alon, can you do something with this? Because I wanted to have it for the announcement for this week's chat. So it was great. So we have that one with the Stormtrooper.
That picture's really good.
It's so good. It's awesome. So Alon is here to join us first and foremost. So Alon,
well done, sir.
You should be able to unmute now. Welcome, my friend.
Hi, shalom.
Oh, shalom. I was just reading about how Azerbaijan and Israel stand tough together.
Are we?
Apparently, there's another conflict brewing between Azerbaijan and Armenia, I guess. I don't know. Something's going on.
Something's going on every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really into politics and all the reading the news stuff.
Yeah. I understand that.
Yeah. Instead, I read movie news.
That, I mean, the as John says, our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news. Yeah, I wish there was more movie news. I mean, I was hoping the strike would be over by now. I think they're getting there. I mean, maybe I'm tired of seeing things delayed, but hopefully they won't be.
Yeah, you got me real good because I was the first one to raise my hand, but I wasn't prepared to to share my screen because I did do a couple of other things that I'm not sure that Roberto showed you yet.
I've
only seen the one picture.
I can go ahead, Alan, and give you permission here so you can post. So let me do this.
So you can share the screen.
So you can share screen. So
yeah, we'll give you more. We'll give you more time.
Yeah. Okay, so you should be able now to share your screen on Zoom, Alan.
All right, let me just.
But I know what Alon is going to be showing you. This is fun.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Let's see. There we go. Share my screen.
Coming through now, Con.
There we go. All right. Don't be alarmed. I got the old Twitter.
Oh my God.
But yeah.
I have not. Oh man, I haven't seen that. You got to send that to me.
I will.
That's hilarious. I look so svelte.
Yep. That's not you. That's Thrawn.
Oh, I know. But this was amazing. This is amazing.
It did turn out so good.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really recognizable. I would say
it's amazing. Yeah, amazing.
And last but not least.
Oh, I haven't even seen. That's crazy. That is just crazy. Oh man, you got to send me those. Those are fantastic.
Will do.
Wow.
I will.
Wow. Well, people love those. I'll put those on Instagram. Yeah,
are you all caught up with
Ahsoka? Oh yeah. Yes, we were talking about that on Midnight Musings last night. All caught up. I mean,
did you enjoy it? I wasn't able to catch the last couple of streams, so I'm not sure.
Here's the thing. I think that the Filoni-verse and all this stuff has. I mean, to me, the Star Wars universe is really the product of one man's imagination. And I think I kind of have the same problem with modern Star Trek that I have with these shows. Like, for instance, I loved Andor because Andor was on point to me. It was looking into another realm of the Star Wars universe. This is telling stories that are very different from the kinds of stories that George Lucas was addressing, even in terms of if you want to go back and let's look at feudal Japan as being the model for the Star Wars universe. Samurai movies, it's not just feudal Japan, but let's just say feudal Japan. The stuff that we're moving into now with space witches and hyperspace whales and all this stuff on the more fantastical aspects of the Star Wars universe, the Force and all of that, and it's moving away from the idea of rebellion against the Empire. And I'm not saying that Star Wars only has to be about rebellion against the Empire, but it seems like Dave Filoni has taken aspects of the Star Wars universe and run in a different direction than perhaps they were. And I mean, I understand when you're expanding the Star Wars universe, the lore of the Jedi and the Force and all that are something else, but it seems like, you know, it's a mishmash of a bunch of different things. Not that Star Wars isn't already a mishmash of a bunch of different things. It's just going in a direction where I'm tuned out a little more, because the thing that I think that grounded Star Wars so much, and Andor had, was everyday people. And since Phantom Menace, Star Wars has only been about the upper echelons, all the leaders, you know, whereas Luke and Han were just workaday dudes that existed in this empire that was in the midst of this conflict. And so was Andor. You know, Andor dealt mostly with people that were normal people, whereas, and you could say that Rebels and everybody, the characters from Rebels and Clone Wars were, but now everybody now is sort of involved in mysticism and prophecy and all of this stuff. And I'm like, I feel that Star Wars needs the grounding of everyday people in order for it to really work.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's missing.
I would also say, I mean, I totally agree. I am also a bit tuned out. I mean, I do catch up with the latest episode and stuff, but I'm not really feeling the urge to watch every episode. I'm just catching up, you know. And I kind of feel as if I've always been, like, ever since I was a child, I've always been like a more fantasy geek instead of like a sci-fi geek.
Right.
Lately, over the last couple of years, I've been watching Star Wars, and I've been like more into the sci-fi stuff. But I'm slowly getting out of like the sci-fi sphere in favor of going back to my roots. And I would say, yes, this is Luna, by the way. I'm not sure that you can see her.
Oh, I can see in the background, but yeah.
And I kind of feel as if I'm slowly falling out of love with Star Wars. It's not that I don't like it anymore. It's just like it's now occupying a smaller space of my attention span.
Well, I think like Star Trek, it's trying to become more fantasy oriented. Not that Star Wars wasn't always a space fantasy, but the idea of Star Wars was that, you know, you're going back, and it was sort of an amalgamation of the different empires that have existed, everything from ancient Rome to Nazis, you know, and so the idea of rebelling against an empire is something that humanity has done throughout its history. So now it's moving. I mean, when you've got hyperspace space whales, it's the same way as having tardigrades that live in the mycellular network. I mean, and I find myself really weird. I'm tuning out from all this stuff. And the more like I'll buy a giant space slug in an asteroid, like a space slug living in the vacuum of space. I'll buy something like that. But when you now have animals that are slipping into something that is created through physics, you know, like what traveling through hyperspace, a faster than a FTL drive. Now the writers of these shows I tune out. My ability to believe goes away when, like, Star Trek has way too much fantasy in it now. I can't even, the spore drive itself in my mind broke the universe. And people can go, well, Rob, any kind of faster than light travel, come on. But the thing is, the whole point of science fiction is it grounds what it does, even its technology, in some kind of believable gobbledygook. I mean, everyone talks about the technobabble in Star Trek, but the technobabble grounded the magical technology in some kind of reality, in a way. And at least it tried. So I ask you, how is a whale, first of all, space whale, supposed to open faster than light travel? How does that work? Like, how can a whale, an organic creature, do the same thing as the hyperdrive on the Millennium Falcon, and better than anything else, because it can go possible to travel intergalactically? I'm like, that might be a fun visual, but I'm like, I'm out. And then there's a whale graveyard. I get it. I saw Island at the Top of the World. I get whale graveyards. I understand that since I was a little kid, but I'm like, and then it's compounded because that's just one of many different things. I've got space witches. I got this, I got that. And I know it's all part of the lore, but that's all fucking fantasy. It truly is space fantasy. And to me, it's too much because Star Wars always had a grounding in reality, which was a farmer and a truck driver. But that's just me.
Thanks, Alon, and thanks for the artwork. Keep that coming.
Yeah, man, that artwork's dope. I need those other two. I got to put them up.
My biggest problem that I've had with Ahsoka so far is that I still feel like Filoni writes for cartoons more than he does for live action, because
I agree.
That scene towards the end of the last episode where Sabine finally finds Ezra, and he's like, so what's going on? And she's like, oh, let's talk about it later. I'm like, Thrawn is about to turn around that ship and head to your galaxy based on the fact that you let the map survive. So you're responsible for what's about, and you're gonna just you can't afford the time to chat about this later. You need to tell him right then and there, we got to hustle it back and try to stop what's going on. I mean, I don't understand. So,
well, I think you've nailed a problem.
It's like an animation shortcut that doesn't feel right in live action.
Yeah. And the characters like Balin is better written than a character that he's talking to. Mm-hmm. So you buy into Balin, but the person that he might be having a conversation with, I'm like, what is all this? And it's true. I mean, Star Wars had a certain kind of the original. People always get mad at me. I'm like, look, Star Wars is the original film. Everything springs out of that original movie, even including Empire Strikes Back and Jedi. So when I think about the original trilogy, that's what Star Wars is. Yeah. So you always have to look back. You can say what it's become, but what it's become is a derivation on a theme. And the thing about Star Wars was it was about workaday guys and girls. Yeah, you had a princess, but even the princess was workaday. She was an aristocrat, but she also got her hands dirty and wasn't afraid. So, and I miss that. Everyone now is some kind of special being or somebody, and I don't. Someone's a Jedi, someone's force sensitive, someone's this, someone's that.
Well, we've got a couple of super chats before we continue with our friends here. But Irene Jobson has been a member for 11 months. Thank you, Irene, as always. And she also drops actually a question for me. Roberto Suarez, are your glasses Iron Man inspired? I don't know if the glasses are, but that's why I got them. I got them because they reminded me of Iron Man. But whether or not the designer was thinking about Iron Man, I don't know. But thanks for the super chat. And just a reminder to folks, if you want to drop super chats or send tips, those are always welcome during the members-only chats as well. Darth Plato up next, so I'm going to go ahead and have you unmute, Darth. You should be able to join us now.
Hello.
What's up, dude?
I'm good. I'm having a good morning. It's good to be here. Nice to talk to you guys. I just wanted to follow up something on what you were just talking about. The notion of an empire. So you have polities, countries, states, they all work within a system. An empire seeks to be the system.
Mm.
So there hasn't really been something like that in history. There were very few exceptions, but they're always localized to the area. Obviously, probably maybe China might be the best example of that. But aside from that, in fiction, you really only see a couple of examples of something like this, where you have one super state where everything is really covered into this notion of this Imperium. Star Wars is one of these examples. Another one would obviously be the Imperium in Dune. When you have one big super state, there's not a whole lot you can really do. There's no such thing as foreign policy. There's no interaction with anybody. It's completely self-contained. So everything happens is going to be internally conflict. I'm not even sure if something like that is even possible.
Yeah, I mean, but they referred to, like, even in the original Star Wars, there's how are they going to keep the local systems in line, without the bureaucracy? And it would be really interesting. thing is, to me, they've never explored the inner political workings of the whole system. Like, how do you govern a galaxy?
Yeah, I'm not
Like,
sure
you
you
just
can.
Yeah, but they've somehow it'd be interesting to delve into. You saw a little bit of that with Andor. I mean, they're starting to get in, but you're right. I mean, the idea that there's this all-encompassing evil power, and then when you start to get it, or are they evil? One of the things I liked about Andor was there's a lot of people that it showed that there's a lot of good people that work for the Empire, that by working for the Empire, they've sort of now they're on the side of evil, but good, capable people that depending on which way the wind blows, if there was a different political structure in place, a republic or whatever, they would be good republic functionaries. And I want to see more of that. I know that's not what people want to see, lightsabers and Jedi, but to me, that's all because it's all so underdeveloped. Like there's no, they just keep adding lore, space witches and all this. And I'm like, if there's more lore that's always going to be added, I can't get into it that much, because I'm like, you're always going to be changing the goalposts are always moving. And it, I don't know.
Like it was just something I wanted to get out there. It's, what I really wanted to mention is I really enjoyed that show you did the other day about Space 1999.
Oh, with Jeffrey.
Yeah, I watched that when I was a kid. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. I just started binge watching it again this week, and talk about memory lane. I haven't seen stuff in 40 years.
Yeah, it's wild to go back and watch, especially the first season, because the tone of it is not what you remembered. I mean, it's this really somber. It's really weird. And by the end of when you get to the end of the last season of the last episode of the first season, the Testament of Arcadia, there's really interesting implications about what happens. And then they threw all that away and for the second season. But I've always loved Space 1999 for what it is.
We won't expand on that. What do you mean? What implications? I just saw that episode last night.
Oh, well, like that there's a cosmic force, God, what have you, moving the moon around, because the only way if the moon was blown out of Earth's orbit by a nuclear explosion, it would never leave we would never get out of it. It would take years and decades to get out of the solar system. So there is some kind of cosmic interference that's moving and the Testament of Arcadia kind of imply that. There's a few other episodes that do as well. It doesn't really get into it, but it's kind of there. And if you watch the show and ask yourself, how does the moon even get to an alien world?
Yeah, there's no explanation for why the moon just completely changed course, stops here, it is immobilized, and then at the inconvenient point of the episode, it's able to break away again. You're right. There does seem to be some sort of higher power.
Yeah, but they can't, because it was a TV show in the 70s. They weren't going to ever, and it's interesting because you could even write a book, I suppose, like in Battlestar Galactica in the 78 version, when we meet the angels, and the implication Count Ibley or whatever was the devil.
Yeah, there was the Mormon devil. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Mormon devil, and because Glenn Larson was Mormon, and there's a lot of that kind of, and I mean, one of the things that I loved about how they dealt with that in modern Battlestar Galactica was that God, the God, the one true God, was a character in the show. You call it the one true God. There was a higher power who was an absent character but was always there, and we saw him or her or it acting through his head six or head Baltar, and so they were angels. Call them what you want. So this character, this God, was always, and in the final season, a lot of people never liked this shit, but when Starbuck comes back, Angel Starbuck with her perfectly brand new Viper, and then I loved the moment at the end in Daybreak when she disappears, when she's sitting there with Apollo talking to him and just disappears on the hill, on Earth. I thought I loved that episode. A lot of people didn't. I loved it. I thought Daybreak was, I mean, sure, like, why would you get rid of your fleet and throw it into the sun so there's no evidence, nobody can find you? But still, I still loved it. I loved it. A lot of people didn't.
Yeah, I love Space 99, the brass knuckle guns.
The design of the comm locks, the brass knuckle guns, of course, the Eagles. all the spaceships, you know,
Yeah,
and it was
the remote.
yeah, that was great. It was
Yeah, I love everything. Yeah, I don't know if I love everything about it, but definitely very underrated show. I think there definitely were some doozy episodes that I think they could have done without the. But like I said, I only have 20 seconds left, so I'm just going to close by asking this question: what do you think of Martin Landau's commander character compared to, like, say, other commanders, like, say, classic Adamo or Captain Kirk?
well, he was less of a classic swashbuckling character, and he was more of an administrator, but he still cared passionately about the safety of his people. I mean, I think he was after all, he was an astronaut. They show him in certain flashbacks as an administrator. And I liked him as a captain, the commander. I enjoyed that character a lot. I mean, and I liked, because it seemed to me that these were not fantasy characters, as more they grounded the show. They made it realistic, like they seem like, oh, these are real people that could exist in our world today. And I like that about him. I mean, you know, he's not the most conventionally handsome man in the world, but there was something about him. There was a gravitas that he had. And I've always liked his performance, and I liked the way he speaks. I don't know. There was something about him I always liked. And I'm really pissed that Big Chief Studios went out of business because they had my money for my 6-scale John Koenig figure. And I'm like, come on, man. No, I'm never going to get him.
All right, thank you so much, Darth Plato. And Darth Plato, thanks always for helping out with moderation too. He's always one of our top folks helping out there, moderating all the shows in the Burnettwork. So appreciate it. And we've got Julian Mushkin coming up next. Welcome, Julian.
What's up, dude?
Howdy.
What's going on?
No, not a lot. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
So they say.
So they say. This has been a big Star Trek thought, and it's also a big Star Wars thought that we are seeing now. They share these together. For better or worse, since the prequels and the Clone Wars, the decisions that one makes and the responsibilities and the consequences of them has always been what they're stressing, that as these moral poems, these stories that they're telling now, that you know, you have to be conscious of your decisions. And you know, as far as the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, of course, it's always seemed to me that, you know, like the Jedi were supposed to be espousing this kind of also, that they need to be able to make decisions that are for the greater good, whereas the Sith were always making decisions for the individual. This is what I want. I want this power. I want to live forever. I don't care about you. So, of course, the Jedi stressed that we want this. We need to be able to make those decisions regardless of how we feel as individuals. And so it's obvious that they're trying to, actually, it's kind of ironic that, you know, Anakin makes his individualistic decision to do what he does because of how it's going to affect him if something happens to Padme, and the consequences are Darth Vader and everything that follows. And what's ironic is that his son makes an individual decision. I am not going to fight you, because of his emotional empathy for his father. And that's a decision that is like, if he fails, Sidious wins. You know, Palpatine wins most likely in a different situation, you know, if he doesn't make that decision. And that here is Ahsoka now dealing with her fears of what might happen to her because of her legacy through Anakin, who, you know, his legacy goes up to Dooku, who was also a Sith Lord. And so she's thinking about all this, and here her Padawan makes an individual decision, stand the consequences. And so I find it very interesting. We keep on getting this, you know, in the decision. The decision is, I'm going to do something for myself. And a lot of the problem, I think, with what's going on with this storytelling is that he's telling the wrong story. He dumped us in the middle of this stuff to push the narrative forward, and so we have to spend all this time guessing what the hell happened between Sabine and Ahsoka. Why do we have to spend? We shouldn't have to spend all that time having to figure out why they grew estranged. We don't find out until the last moment that her parents were killed on Mandalore, and that it may have had something to do with Ahsoka in a decision that was made there. So, then suddenly she makes this decision. It was like, oh, I wouldn't have made that decision. But we don't know because we weren't given any of this information in the first place. We also don't know how long Ahsoka's been sitting on Malachor after the events of Rebels. It's like, obviously she sat through most of the original series, and we don't know what she was doing. And that's when she should have been trying to deal with her trauma over what happened between her and Vader. And yet we have to wait until 5 years later, after the end of the Civil War, for her to finally deal with it, because she was either suppressing it or something, because she gets off the planet and at some point decides she's going to train Sabine for whatever reason, and then realizes, oh wait, that's not going to work. I suspect that she didn't let Sabine go to fight with the Mandalorians because she was worried that something would happen to Sabine. She was already feeling that attachment, and that's why she X'd out of there. She's like, no, I'm not getting attached. And by that time, it was already too late, but she's like, I can't deal with this. So she leaves. That's why when she meets Grogu, she's like, I'm not going to train him because I'm not going to get attached. And so she's been running away from her issues all that time. But we don't know because Filoni won't tell us. And so that's really hampering the storytelling. Plus, then you add in all this stuff that they have to do for this Favreau Filoni verse, Mandalorian verse that they're trying to build and push forward, perhaps even pushing it in a different direction that goes away from the sequels, so that we're not spending a lot of time in spaces that are dealing with the sequels. So it's very frustrating, the storytelling.
I don't disagree with you. And I know that see, to me, here's the thing. To me, I always look to, like, Star Wars was always had something was analogous outside of what Star Wars was about. Like, George Lucas was inspired by actual things that happen on this planet, whether it was the samurai world or whether it's a Hero of a Thousand Faces and all of that stuff. And that's why I say, when there's no real grounding, I'm watching all these stories. And like you said, nowadays, I feel that most fantasy and science fiction is really about our heroes doing something that has larger implications for either humanity or the galaxy or something else. But now we live in a world, Star Trek is infected by this, where all the main characters are all about themselves. Like, I've got to go do this thing. I'm going to go this, and I'm going to go do that. And it's like, you're not part of a military, or a lot of people like Star Trek was never about the military, but you call it a quasi-military organization with a command structure. That's why there's ranks and all that. But now the characters just do what they want. Because everyone, I feel like we're going through a world where our real world is all about, well, what I feel. It's my identity. You better talk to me about the way I want my identity to be recognized, or the problem is you. When did this happen? Like, when did people feel that they shouldn't be a part of the larger body politic? Like, they're not part of a society. And it's weird. And I think that a lot of our writing in science fiction and fantasy has become that way. I think people have taken away the wrong lessons. And like you said, I think it's a great example that, you just gave about Ahsoka, and it's all about what they want. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. And in Star Wars, the simplicity of the original Star Wars was that Luke makes this decision after he loses his family. I want to go do some good. I want to get off this rock and go do some good. He might desire to do that, but what he's wanting to do is go out and help the rest of the galaxy. You know, whether it was, do you know of the rebellion against the Empire? I mean, he's always aspired to do, and that's why when he throws away his lightsaber in Jedi, I'll never join you. That would be the easy way out. You know, and I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think, you know, we talk a lot about identity politics in the world today. It's not necessarily identity politics. It's about how everybody expects that who and what they are it's okay to foist yourself and whoever you want to be upon the rest of the world, and then blame the rest of the world when they don't recognize that about you. You know, personal identity should not be about foisting yourself on the rest of the world. It should be about actualizing yourself and who you are. And then you show the world what you want them to see. And you can't expect the world itself to be the way you want it. And yet everybody does. Everybody's like, if the world outside isn't the way I want it, it's weird. And it's infected all of our writing the good writers are still writing great stuff, but it's weird. It's an interesting time.
Thank you, Justin. We got Roger Robertson coming up next. Roger, come on down. You should be able to unmute and join Rob now.
Hello, Rob.
What's going on, man?
Hey, doing well. I thought you looked quite good in a stormtrooper's helmet with a gold face.
The Mordred.
You're kind of the Star Wars version of Goldfinger.
I'll take it. Because I'll leave a little bit of my backside so it can breathe, so my body isn't entirely covered.
It's a good.
So I don't suffocate like that poor girl.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Midnight Musings last night. It was pretty good. It's been a little while since you guys got together, but I did want to tell you that I am happy to say I did watch your Frederick Douglass show.
Oh, thank you.
And I did enjoy it. I don't know, maybe people aren't into history.
Well, look, I mean, you know, every time you talk about, I mean, I totally get it. But I've been doing this education thing kind of, and I wanted to sort of end with that, although there's always more to talk about, because I do think that, you know, we need a healthy, intelligent population. I've always seen it as it's a national security issue, you know, and we don't, the education in this country is falling precipitously. And we are becoming a profoundly uneducated population. And I think it's by design. You know, I think that there are, and I'm not like, well, the elites don't want us to think. You know, I think I'm talking about just working knowledge, our basic education. I think we have a whole group of people, especially young people, that really don't have a broad base of real knowledge. I mean, I think if most people were like dropped in the wilderness, they might not do very well. And I think it's more important. I mean, basic education is worth its weight in gold and diamonds or whatever, and you don't even know how important it is. And so I would have thought that was a basic thing, but you know. And Frederick Douglass, people have always asked why I have that sticker. I get various. Some people are either incensed about it, which I think is interesting. People they're calling me out on it. They think I have an ulterior motive. And really, just a friend of mine sent me a package of stickers. You know, and there was Einstein with him sticking his tongue out. And I'm like, but the Frederick Douglass thing, I was working on a project after Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter came out or whatever. We were going to do a whole Frederick Douglass zombie movie, you know, about how the South, in an effort to win the Civil War, went to Haiti, sent a garrison to Haiti to find the secret of reanimating the undead. And the South was going to reanimate all their dead fallen soldiers.
You know, there's people down there that would have done anything for the devil to win out.
Yeah, and they do. And Frederick Douglass is caught with Harriet Tubman. They're trying to get, in this movie we wanted to make, are trying to get the Underground Railroad, a group of people up into the north to escape the zombie hordes. And that was the movie we were going to make. And Phil Lamar was going to play Frederick Douglass. And we did a whole photo shoot. So I've been a fan of Frederick Douglass for a long time.
Yeah. I was interested. I didn't know really some of the particular speeches, that July 4th speech I thought. I mean, that's something that really, I mean, should be talked about more. There was some great stuff in that speech. I
Oh,
don't think I've heard of before.
well, it's an amazing thing, because if you think now, like Frederick Douglass obviously was a former slave, and this pre-Civil War, and it's amazing to say where he comes out and he comes out and says this country is like the greatest country in the world, and why he believes so, and then he absolutely can say, but maybe not for Black people, and so he's able to condemn practice of slavery and all that, but then at the same time still recognize why America is great.
But even though half the founding fathers were slave owners,
right,
he still gave them credit for being exalted and being exceptional individuals.
Well, he also understood that was, nowadays people sit there and go, well, they were all slave owners. Well, that was the norm. That would be like saying in 100 years, anybody who burns fossil fuels is evil or something. But back in the practice of slavery had been normalized in human history for over 1,500 years at that point. We go back all the way. I mean, slavery was common practice amongst, and everybody had been enslaved. If you were part of like if Rome took over your town or whatever.
That in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And people forget about that. And like the Barbary Coast slave traders, they were Africans that were going out and enslaving other people. They'd go all the way even up to Iceland. And but nowadays, because people don't have a broad base of historical knowledge, they focus on one single thing and they think that that's a truth.
Well, like your story about "Don't Tread on Me." I mean, that was just idiotic. Saying that kid was bringing in a racist thing about "Don't tread on me" had nothing to do with.
Well, they were studying the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
And because the guy who created that flag was a rich man, he owned a number of businesses. Yes, he was a slave owner, but the "Don't Tread on Me" flag became the pennant, the banner of the Continental Navy.
Because the point of it was that the colonies had to stick together instead, being cut up in pieces. If they was cut up in pieces, they'd be lost.
Right.
Like,
and the
Benjamin
snake.
Franklin said, if we don't hang together, we'll all hang separately.
Yes, and the snake, the rattle of that snake had 13 things to. Well, what's really interesting is here's this kid in 7th grade who's reading and finding out about these things and finds the "Don't tread on me." Like when you're a kid, like I did the same kind of things when you'd hear some kind of terminology or phrase or indicator, like the peace sign or something. And I remember when people were starting to get into Bob Marley and reggae, that Bob Marley reggae flag would show up everywhere. I mean, this kid was doing exactly what he was supposed to do. And now, because we have such a ridiculously limited understanding, just because certain groups have now taken on the "Don't Tread on Me" flag and tried to, I wouldn't say pervert it, but use it, modern groups that might be unsavory or using it, doesn't mean that you can't. If you're teaching this period of history and some kid puts a "Don't Tread on Me" patch on his backpack because he's actually learning about where this came from, that should be something that you go, good on you. And the question should be, listen, we wanted to just ask you, why did you choose to put this patch on your jacket or your backpack? We'd like to hear it from you. And if the kid says, well, I was learning about the Revolutionary War, then it's the lessons that he's actually learning. And to tell him that he shouldn't undermines the entire idea of education, because our ridiculously weird desire to go back and right the wrongs of the world by saying, I mean, all of human history is terrifyingly awful. I mean, we were awful. Human beings were awful. Everybody was awful to everybody at one point. And now, this idea, well, we want to get this, we want to get paid back for this that happened 200 years ago or whatever. Like, really, when does that end? Every group of people on the planet has been persecuted in some way, shape, or form at some point. I mean, we used to hate the Irish. I mean, really? Redheads and whiskey? Why would you hate the Irish? But after the potato famine, the immigration, we're not a very mature bunch, unfortunately.
Sorry, Rob, I forgot to change my camera here. But wanted to just do a super chat before we continue. We have
Yes.
$9.99 from Ron C. Says, hello, Rob. To make less stress for myself, I separate the two Star Wars. 77 to 2011, George Lucas Star Wars, and 2012 to present day Disney Star Wars. I no longer merge the brands together. Thanks, Rob, and stay safe.
I think that's an interest. I mean, the fun. I think that there's a huge difference. I mean, the prequels, whether you love them or not, that is uncut, unfiltered George Lucas. And when Disney took over the Star Wars franchise, like so many, it was bought as a commodity to sell more of. It was a product that had made lots of money over the years. I mean, the merchandising alone was like $22 billion. So Disney bought a product. And like anything, they now, from a corporate standpoint, how does a corporation make their product? So storytelling is not something you can quantify, at least not great storytelling. You can sit there and, well, it needs these elements. But the way those elements are distilled or fermented or however they're put in is not something a corporation knows. So the whole reason Star Wars was made in the first place, I mean, you can't say that George Lucas didn't want to make money, but remember, he thought the first Star Wars, it was a passion project of his that nobody even wanted to make until Alan Ladd Jr. gave him a shot. Universal, that had great success with American Graffiti, another movie they thought was going to not work because the powers that be didn't understand why would anybody go see this movie. Turns out it became a huge hit. Even Universal said, yeah, no, we're going to pass on your little Flash Gordon pastiche. No. So it was, Star Wars was always, the prequels were made to make money and all that, to fuel all the businesses Lucas had wanted to, which is fine, but it still came from him. And Disney Star Wars, the whole reason for continuing Star Wars is only based on finance and capitalism, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but you still need visionary artists to create great storytelling.
Yeah, and a return on the investment that they made on it, right? So
yeah, and they've made a pretty good investment. Mm-hmm. You know, they've made those movies grossed a lot of money, and the sad part is if they made better decisions, and if a corporation just doesn't know how to make movies. And I think what's happening to these larger corporations is the powers that be and the people that actually have to make the product that they're trying to sell are fundamentally diametrically opposed in terms of what they're doing. So the people that have to pull the trigger, that have to make the decision, you go all the way up to Bob Iger or whatever, they're not filmmakers, they're not storytellers, and yet they control the purse strings and they control the gate who gets to come through and work on these stories. And all the people they hired, all the people, Bob Iger going out and getting things like Pixar and Lucasfilm and Marvel, he was getting all the people that knew how to do these things. And then suddenly Disney corporate and Disney's financial needs overshadow the companies that they've acquired. And so the companies that they've acquired can't do the work that they were supposed to do. There's an interference going on. So it immediately pollutes. I mean, Marvel was allowed to flourish. They kept their hands off there for a while until, of course, Marvel then is obligated to fill up Disney Plus with a bunch of shows. So Marvel was doing a great job. And then, now you got to go make a bunch of TV shows. Why? Well, because we need it for Disney Plus. Not because we want something that's good, which they do theoretically. They just take it for granted that it would be as good as it had always been. And then you run into problems.
Well, I'm sure we're going to be learning about what's going on with the Wheel of Time from Stubble McShave, another one of those properties that has been turned into a series. And Stubble, I've been appreciating Stubble's reports on the series as it's going. Wondering what you've got to share with us here today. Welcome, Stubble.
Well, hello.
How are you?
Well, I'm good. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, I can't see what's on the
Anyway, it's whatever. I'm reading Mayberry's Patient Zero now.
Oh, Oh, you're already on that's the fourth book.
No, that's
you're you're
first.
talking about the first book. Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking that this fourth book. So what do you think?
Well, I'm just like 12 chapters in, and it's 120 chapters or something. So
Yeah.
I'm just at the beginning, but so far so good. It was interesting that they have both first point of view and third point of view in the book.
Yes. Yeah, because you've got Joe Ledger. So what's the series of books? It's by Jonathan Mayberry, and it's called the Joe Ledger series. But it's kind of a cross between Tom Clancy and the X-Files. And what he does is he takes well-worn horror tropes. The first book, Patient Zero, deals with an engineered pathogen that basically turns people into zombies. Yeah. But it's engineered. It's a terrorist weapon. And as you go through, you've got like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you've got Lovecraft, you've got aliens, you've got vampires. You've got AI run amok. I mean, and so he deals with these well-worn tropes, but in a realistic, militaristic sort of way. And Joe Ledger works for the Department of Military. Well, he ends up getting recruited into the Department of Military Science that's run by a very mysterious, perhaps immortal man named Mr. Church, who goes by a number of names. Yeah. But it's one of my favorite series of books. The new book, the 13th book, Cave 13, was really good.
Yeah. And I see a lot of similarities to the Dresden Files in it.
Mm-hmm.
The sarcastic humor and that it has to have the quick repartees when that. And that's the same kind of vibe that they do vampires in a new way and so on.
Right. Yeah, and they try and ground everything in a reality. Yeah. So you believe it. Yeah. And it's I think it would make a great TV series where you could do a book a season, because there's always a larger, like the villains are very Bond-like, James Bond villains. And then you realize as you read more of the books that there's a whole lattice work, like some of these villains have been working together. They know one another. As certain villains might be defeated, the rest of their organization continues on. So it's really interesting. Yeah. And it's got politics in it, and it's got a lot of action, a lot of sci-fi and horror. There's so much fun to read.
Yeah. The same as Dresden Files for me that I read. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to continuing through the series.
Yeah, I mean it's up and down. Some books are better than others. Yeah. As always. Yeah, but it's, for the most part, it's a lot of fun, and you'll notice the structure. The structure of the books is kind of the same. Yeah. But that's okay. I read them. I tear through these books. Yeah.
And Roberto mentioned the Wheel of Time series. Have you watched it? Anything?
I have not watched any of season 2.
Yeah. I must say that season 2 is a big step up.
That's good.
Both in quality and pacing and all of those stuff. So I think I know what everyone doesn't like it, but I think season 2 is pretty good, actually.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, especially from someone like yourself, who's a devotee of the books.
Yeah. But I mean, they don't follow, the exact plot lines of the book or like that. But I think they will end up in the same place.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it'll keep going. I think, it's really interesting. I feel like a lot of this stuff is they're going after these things. It's kind of like after in the wake of Twilight, which became a huge movie series and a cultural thing after the books came out. And then Hunger Games worked, but then like there was Maze Runner and there was all these things that they wanted to. And I think Wheel of Time was like they were looking for fantasy series to go after Lord of the Rings and stuff. And hopefully, I mean, Wheel of Time's such a smart series, but it's tough to do. I mean,
yeah, but we'll see how it goes. But I really liked episode 5 and 6, and we'll see how it ends out here with the last couple of episodes. But anyway, I watched some trailers recently, and I must say that I'm looking forward to the free body problem.
Oh yeah, did you read those books?
I read the first book.
Yeah, me too. I read the first book. Did you watch the Chinese series?
No, I haven't watched the Chinese series.
It's really good. I mean, it's weird because it's a Chinese show, so there's a lot of kind of weird things, the way they do things that gets a little strange, like the music at the end and how they do the end titles. It took me a while to get used to it, but I thought it was a really good book because I love the three body. I've got the other two books, the Dark Forest and what is it, Deaths, whatever it's called. I want to read the other two books, I think, but I have to go back and read the first one again.
Yeah. But I'm wondering how the Chinese will respond to it, because often they don't like, when the Western world does Chinese stories. So we'll see how they like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that they allow them to make that, because a lot of it deals with Chinese history, and they're going to do the other two books as well. They're going to go back, and I think, there was that mandate a couple of years ago where the Chinese government actually said it was in the wake of The Wandering Earth doing really, really well, and it did well internationally. And it's The Wandering Earth is by the same author who wrote Season Liu. I can't pronounce Chinese names, but he wrote that book as well. And then there was the mandate that came out and said that the Chinese government wanted to see more science fiction getting made. And I thought that was pretty neat. I mean,
it's nice how they treat the Cultural Revolution in
well, yeah, I mean, that's it dealt with the Cultural Revolution. And I was like, man, are they going to deal with that? It's interesting. I mean, I think that science fiction is a bridge between cultures. I mean, I think that it's really interesting. Maybe that's why I always loved Asian science fiction, because I always loved seeing how a different culture deals with this stuff. Like, you could see, like, Shin Godzilla, for instance. If you guys haven't seen Shin Godzilla, it was the last Toho Godzilla movie, but it basically is like, what if FEMA had to deal with Godzilla's arrival and treated it like a natural disaster? So you're dealing with the bureaucracy and how do you get men and equipment to places where people need it? It was really good. That's why I can't wait to see Godzilla -1 or Godzilla 0, whatever it's called. I can't wait. But if you guys haven't seen the three body, in the series is just called Three Body, and it's on the Tencent YouTube channel, and it's like 30 episodes long or something. I think it's like 30 episodes long. You can watch it for free. And the book, The Three Body Problem, won the Hugo Award. So it's like an Academy Award winning science fiction novel. It's Chinese, and the series was made in China, and it's pretty faithful to the book. And if you want to watch something, if you like what's going on with Foundation, I would, and it is kind of a slow burn, to be honest. The first 10 episodes can be a little repetitive, but I would say, if you want to watch some really interesting hard sci-fi, go check out Three Body on the Tencent YouTube channel.
Yeah, Robin, to your point of speaking about how China is, really encouraging science fiction writing, and there's a great epilogue to The Three Body Problem where the author talks about the influence of Arthur C. Clarke when he was growing up, and to now be basically kind of returning the favor with sharing his perspective of science fiction with the American audience. It was an epilogue on the translation of the book to English and how much that meant to him. So I thought it was really interesting to get that perspective from him.
Well, I mean, the great thing about science fiction, I think, as a genre and as literature, is it's always kind of seen humanity as the one race that we are. And when you're dealing with the universe, it shows how silly our own tribalism and our own, ethnic prejudices are. I mean, once we start moving out into the universe, people aren't going to be like, oh, you're an Asian human, or you're a black human. They're just going to be like, oh, you're from Earth. It's gonna, because aliens are gonna not see us as, they're just gonna see us as Earthlings. And I think that science fiction as a whole has been, and also international boundaries are. I mean, there's obviously there's been certain kaiju movies where the Japanese take pot shots at America, because after all, we did drop 2 atomic bombs on them, and that's where Godzilla came from. So I get it. And there's a lot of those, but that's to be expected. But for the most part, the 3-body problem is for those people who want to get an idea of what the 3-body problem really is about. In a nutshell, we discover we're not alone in the universe, and this alien race, the Trisolarians, know that we're here, and they basically launch a fleet to come to Earth, but it's not going to be here for 400 years. And it's all about what happens to our civilization with this knowledge. What are we going to do? And there's a lot more to it than that, but that's the gist.
Yeah, and I'm just showing it off a super chat from Ron H, because he was just asking about that. He said, "Heard you mention the 3-body problem before. Netflix dropped the trailer. What is it all about? It looks weird." It is weird, and the structure of the book is weird, which is why I think the structure of the Chinese series is also weird, because it's trying to kind of follow that structure. I was surprised, like Stubble said, that they have made the cast of the Netflix version more of an international cast as opposed to primarily Chinese, which is what it is in the book and in the original series. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean,
in my mind, all the characters are Chinese, right? So,
yeah, they're and it's weird. I mean, I get why they're going to do that, but it's like, you know, for all of our talk about diversity and all that, so we take this Chinese property, and the first thing we do is like put a bunch of people that aren't Chinese in it.
White guys, and I mean, there's other. They're trying to be more multicultural than that, but yeah, I mean, I think one of the nice things about the book and about the story is that it's all from that perspective, right? So it is.
I agree.
It is primarily. I mean, there's the occasional phone call with a official from another country or something.
Right.
But for the most part, it's all a Chinese cast. So
they mention other people, you know, around the world and
other scientists and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a weird thing, because I think it's really hard for especially Americans, like when we as Americans, people haven't traveled. It's hard to imagine that if you go to another country like China, it isn't a melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was in South Korea for 2 weeks working on this documentary, you know what there is a lot of in South Korea? Koreans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we don't understand that, and we tend to forget it, because even the way we think about the world is you travel and you go to China, and that's why watching this show I thought was so refreshing. I thought it was really interesting, even the way, like looking at the streets that cars would drive on, and like the way they depict like everyday life, like the kind of, if they're in a restaurant or they go to a bar to talk, like everything is totally different from us. And I loved that about that. That's why I love watching foreign shows. Like I love watching a lot of the Korean stuff that's on Netflix. And because when I went to Seoul, I really loved, and we got out into the countryside and drove around, and I really loved South Korea a lot. I thought it was great, but everything is different.
And even from an editing perspective, the credits play at odd times during the episode.
Totally weird.
They actually changed the theme song at the beginning, and even like from episode to episode, you may have a different opening. So it's a really interesting thing.
Yeah, and there's not the same song, and then it kind of it became the same song for a while, you know, and then you're like, okay, and I wish it was great, because when you're watching it, I'm like, I like the weirdness of it. I'm like, clearly, because you know, I've watched a lot of Chinese movies, you know, a lot of, like, especially over the last 30 years, all the John Woo and Sweetheart and whatever, all those movies, and Ringo Lam and the Jackie Chan movies, and they're in their structure, they've emulated Western cinema,
right?
But this show
does not.
Does not. Yeah, and so when you're watching it, it really takes you really have to put some time into it.
It almost reminds me of like some classic anime and stuff and the way that it's structured. Yeah.
Yeah. But that weirdness, once you settle into it, I was like, this is the weirdness of it was what I liked.
Right.
Now as we're talking about it, I'm like, I want to go watch that again.
Yeah. We got a couple more chats here. Sorry to keep the people waiting. We just have a World in Pajamas saying, wanted to let you know, trying not to get you canceled with our documentary. I'm only teasing, supposed to be out on the town tonight, twisted my knee, got up with you instead, prefer to be out dancing. Sorry, Rob. So thanks for the 10 pounds there, a World in Pajamas.
Well, that's Science Lady. That's Tracy.
Oh, that's Science Lady.
I want to go party with Tracy.
No kidding.
So she's going to do a documentary. She's been talking about doing this documentary about here on the Burnettwork is, would you have sex with an alien, and how far out into alien creatures would you go? And so Tracy's making a documentary delving into that possibility. Like, would you fuck a predator or a xenomorph? I mean, these are questions that we have to ask us, because as we know from Aliens, it doesn't matter whether it's Octurian, whatever that means.
Yeah.
You know, and as we delve into questions of gender and identity on this planet, how far is that going to go? And with human sexuality, how far are we going to take our kinks and our weirdness as we move out into the stars? These are very important questions we all have to ask ourselves.
And Bill Barkley just wanted to comment on your T-shirt, Rob. He loves your Jeff Wayne War of the Worlds Tim Martian Fighting Machine T-shirt.
You know what's funny about the Jeff Wayne War of the Worlds? Like, it was a big deal when I was a kid. Now nobody even knows what it is.
Is that the one that played in planetariums?
Well, yeah, they played it in planetariums. They've done all. I mean, it's a concept album.
Right.
You know, and it's awesome.
It is cool.
It's so cool. And like this is a like a tour shirt. It's got the tour dates on the back.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's weird to me because something like War of the Worlds, and then to a certain extent, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the original radio show. Like I think I want to say I first heard it in 1980. Like it was playing on like NPR or whatever. I was obsessed with the radio show. That was before we had the books, of course, the TV show, but the radio show. And I listened to like the first Star Wars radio show. And I was a big, which by the way, I might as well, since we're talking about this. So one of the things that we're going to be doing here, one of the things that my company with Mike Bodden, Imagination Connoisseurs Unlimited, is going to be doing, we are partnering up with mystery writer Max Allan Collins. Max Allan Collins wrote the graphic novel Road to Perdition that the movie was based on. Max Allan Collins took over Mickey Spillane's the Mickey Spillane estate after Mickey Spillane passed away. Max Allan Collins took over his character of Mike Hammer.
Okay, great.
And has been writing the Mike Hammer novels ever since. He recently signed on to become the executive producer with Skydance that produces the Mission Impossible movies. They're doing a Mike Hammer feature, and Max Allan Collins is the executive producer of that. So Max Allan Collins has been writing his own series of detective novels about the character of Nathan Heller. There are 17 Nathan Heller novels. The 18th comes out on October 10th. It's called Too Many Bullets. So we here, me, Mike, Matt, we have teamed up with Max, and we are going to be making scripted audio dramas.
Oh, wow.
And I call them movies, but no pictures. And we are going to be adapting the Nathan Heller books, and they begin in the 30s. He's a Chicago police officer, and then he goes on to become the detective to the stars. And we are currently negotiating with a recent fan favorite actor to play the character of Nathan Heller. And the way we're going to do it is we have the money to make the project, but they're going to be like 6 hours long each. So we're going to adapt his books. They're all going to be SAG actors that play the parts. It'll be done under the auspices of SAG and the WGA, because Max Collins is a WGA writer. And so what we're going to do is we have the money to produce the first book, and the first book we're doing is called The Carnal Hours. And but we're going to do a proof of concept, and we are going to do a crowdfunding campaign, because we're going to use a crowdfunding campaign. We're going to do a 12-minute proof of concept for the whole series, but we're also going to shoot a lot of video. We're going to go to Chicago, because the first books are set in Chicago. We're going to take our lead actor to Chicago, and we're going to have our lead actor sit down with Max Allan Collins and discuss the character and all of that. And then we're going to make the recording of this. And it's not going to be like animation. We're going to actually get the actors together and record in a room together. So, and we're going to capture all this on film. So we've already started this project, and it's in process now already. But we will be doing a crowdfunding campaign. Probably, I would imagine we'd launch the campaign. We'll have the first 12 minutes done. You'll be able to see that. And also there's going to be a physical media component, because if any of you collect music and you know what like super deluxe editions are, there's been efforts to like remaster things like Dark Side of the Moon, and the new Duran Duran album is coming out as a super deluxe edition, where the albums are mastered in 5.1 and Dolby Atmos. But the only way to get those is you have to get them on physical media, like on Blu-ray. So we're going to be releasing these audio dramas on physical media in Dolby Atmos and 5.1. And they will also have behind the scenes video and all of that. So that'll be part of it. So that is just it's the first project that we're launching under our new Imagination Connoisseurs Unlimited banner. And all of this has already begun.
Nice.
So it's not something that we need to raise money for, that we're going to start at some point. It's already in process.
That's great,
so,
Rob. Congratulations.
Yeah, and what we hope to do, and we also control, we also have access, we don't control yet, but we also have access to, we're going to be doing other things, not just Max Allan Collins' work, but Max Allan Collins also created Mystery, the comic series about the female detective. It's MS Miss Tree. Okay. So it's Mystery. And we're looking to develop that property as well with Max. And I'm really excited about it, because Max is a world-class writer. He's being published still. And again, the new Nathan Heller novel comes out October 10th, Too Many Bullets. And the cool thing about Nathan Heller, he's kind of like the Woody Allen character Zelig, where he's participated in all of these really interesting historical events from the 30s up through the 60s. So things like the Lindbergh kidnapping, and the Carnal Nights takes place in the Bahamas, and it's about a big event that took place there, and he gets involved in the mob and in political corruption, and what I'm really excited about is all the actors that we are going to have involved in this project. And it's going to be really fun to do, because, a lot of the times when you record animation, one person goes into a booth. One of the things that we want to do is I always want to get the actors, as much as possible, together in a room and act. So if they step over each other's lines and the take is good, we can use that. And we're going to make them sound like it's a movie.
Kind of like the old school radio shows when they would go live with their whole cast doing the special effects and everything live like that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I grew up loving these audio dramas and loving the CBS Radio Mystery Theater. And now a lot of these things are coming back, because you'll also be able to listen to them in your car. Yeah. Audible is doing, you have people like Jessica Chastain doing things. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't have Jessica Chastain, but I think when people find out who we do have, people are going to be like, no way.
Nice.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Sounds like a blast.
And yeah, and tentatively we're gonna be recording the 12 minutes the first week of October. So, and then it'll take a while to do all the engineering. But I'm working with a really talented audio post house that I've worked with for a long time, and they've done a lot of work over the years. So I'm very excited about doing this.
Sounds great. We've kept our friends waiting here.
Yeah, the Gist with Jared.
Let's go ahead. The Gist with Jared has been eagerly awaiting to get his turn. Welcome, Jared.
Hey, been a while, Rob.
How's it going? Good to see you.
Going on.
Yeah, we got stuff cooking, so that's good. In addition to everything else,
I know. I wanted to ask you if you had any update on your panel show or the 10 and 20 videos that were going to be coming out.
So yes, I just got sidetracked. So this panel show, I've been talking to people. I'm ready to do it, and I've got people the people that I want to do it. I just haven't. I got to finalize it and launch it. The hard thing is, so I do these things called crisis medicine, tactical casualty care that I've been filming over the last 6 years. We've been prepping to do one next month. We're doing a big shoot. I'm also doing a Designing Hollywood shoot at Universal on Friday. We're actually going to Universal. It looks like they're going to come on as a sponsor for the show. And I'm doing an on-location shoot with Ellen Mirojnick, who was the costume designer of Oppenheimer. And she also did Basic Instinct, and I love her. I've interviewed her before. So we've got that going on, and that's next week. I've just been White Devils, and then I've been working on this other thing, the Nathan Heller stuff, and then going to Campia. It's just been crazy. It's been really so the panel show, I'm hopefully to start it soon. I've wanted to do more on this channel, but there's been these outside things, and I've just been running around with a chicken with its head cut off. And
well,
then the 10,
busy.
Yeah, the 10 and 20 stuff. I've done some of the first episode, but my problem now is I have to rip the Star Trek episodes off Blu-ray and to edit them, because it's a huge editing job. The first episode's way too big, but it's my 10 essential. If you've never watched Star Trek before, the 10 essential episodes of the first season of the original series to watch to understand Star Trek.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to both of them. And I actually wanted to see if, since For All Mankind is going to be coming out in the next few months, are you still going to hop on an after show with Ray?
Yeah, I mean, and I've talked to Bill Hunt about doing a pre-show and reviewing every episode, the first 3 seasons of For All Mankind, because it starts November 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that maybe we should do a show, and we might record them multiple, we'll pre-record them and then drop them, and then maybe do one live one a week or something to lead up to the show. Yeah, because I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. I can't wait. I mean, Apple's bringing out so much fire content and shows.
Yeah, all their shows, even Invasion, which season 2 is better than season 1 was.
Yeah, I still have to catch up on season 2, but season 1 was all right. It got me interested.
I was so bored, though. I'm like, this is the most boring alien invasion ever.
Mm-hmm.
So,
hey man, speaking of alien invasions, are you buying that alien from the Mexican government? You think it's real?
No. No, it's really bizarre how all this stuff is happening. I think there's a lot of really interesting things, like Fox Mulder. I want to believe, I want to believe that we've been visited by four alien races, and right. I want to believe, but I don't believe the Mexican government. Although that other thing that was happening, that town that was besieged or by that everyone in the town saw these creatures. I mean, I think there's a case to be made. I've always wanted to believe that there's aliens here. I mean, the kind of thing, if you really start thinking about it, if there's aliens that can make it here, that can get here, whether it's interdimensionally or have propulsion systems that they can come from as far away as the closest star system, they're so much more technologically advanced. So I believe an anthill, ants go about their business. They have a whole society in their little giant anthill or whatever. They don't even know we exist. Mm-hmm. And if they did, they look up and they have, if we pass by them, they don't even know what we are. At least that's what we think. We don't. So it wouldn't surprise me to discover that there is some kind of alien race that is here, that is wandering around the whole time, but because of the way we perceive things or the way they can mask themselves, because we can't get out of the fact that we think that all alien races are going to be like us.
Right,
vaguely humanoid, traveling around in ships that we can recognize, and why we think that is because we're humans. We can't conceive of something we can't imagine. And we think we've already imagined aliens and all that. So we think we have a handle on it, like the X-Files, whatever. And that's why are all aliens humanoids? Why do they vaguely look like us with arms and legs and heads? And if we want to make them alien, will they have really big eyes or bald, big heads? Like that's how different it's going to be. Well, if you read Project Hail Mary, the alien creature in that is very, very alien, and the way they think of the world is very like, here's an alien race. They didn't even know what radiation was, because of the way they are and the way they evolved. They were never able, because they can't see. So the way the alien race sees is through hearing, through sound, and they like a bat. And if you can't see something, you can't register and figure out like, oh, we have indicators that show that radiation exists. If they never had that. So I don't know. I just think that the idea that if there were aliens, I don't necessarily think that we would necessarily even know that they were there, or that they would look any. But I want to believe that
too. And I just think in the grand scheme of things, it makes it pretty statistically impossible that it's just us out here in the universe. Just crunking the numbers and everything. I would hope in my lifetime that we get to see something, especially with all the things our government is doing and all the hearings that are coming out and all the whistleblowers. I just hope we get something.
Well, it's interesting too, because they said a lot of it, like, look, you have the archaeologist, the reporter who does the ancient aliens thing. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? The British guy, Graham Hancock.
Yeah, Hancock.
So the funny thing about Graham Hancock is all he's saying is that all he's positing is that there's a lot more human history than we're aware of. He goes that 12,500 years ago, there was a cataclysm that derailed human civilization for thousands of years, but there's evidence that civilization existed. And yet he gets so much pushback from the orthodoxy of the conventional archaeological community. And he's like, look, let's take LiDAR technology and do a survey of the Amazon rainforest, because I'll bet that there's a massive civilization, the evidence of massive cities in there that we don't even know are there. And everyone's like, no. Well, all they have to do is somebody's got to fund that operation. And I think that, Graham Hancock there's a lot of things that we don't understand. Megalith structures, we don't understand how these certain rocks were put into place. I mean, how were these things built? We don't know, because there's no, and all Graham Hancock is really saying is like, let's check it out. Let's see where maybe there's something we don't understand. And I'm like, I can believe that. I can believe that there was a cataclysm that derailed human civilization for thousands of years that we don't necessarily have. You talk about, and he makes a good point, and there's a lot of people like, oh, no, and they try and debunk him. And I'm like, well, maybe there is, debunk all the way, but keep your mind open. I want to see aliens. I just hope I'd go to their home planet. I just hope they wouldn't want to eat me like in the Twilight Zone episode to serve man.
Or we may not want to see aliens if they're anything like the aliens in Free Body Problem. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, the Trisolarans we don't want to see.
We don't want to see those guys.
But if you read the second book, the whole idea of the dark forest theory, we've already fucked that one up. Mm-hmm. Like no one should broadcast their location. Because then you're going to deal with look at how colonization has worked on this planet.
We got a couple of super chats before moving on here. We got King Tannic. Love seeing you doing big projects. Those sound dope. Can't wait to listen to them. Can't join in today, but I hope you all have a good chat. Thanks, King Tannic. And World in Pajamas once again. Saying, give you a spoiler. We have aliens based on barnacles who have the longest peas in the animal world. They can't move from the rock, so the animals send their peas to look for females. Could be funny. All right. Well, we'll have to learn more about that.
Yeah.
We've got Maria Espino coming up next. Maria, you should be able to unmute now.
Well, if it isn't me.
Hello.
It's been a while. I know. I have not been able to catch one of these because I'm just incredibly busy, just the same as you are. Video game industry is wrecked right now, as you can imagine, with the SAG strikes now.
Yeah, now that they haven't officially struck against the video game industry.
No, but we are we are scrambling, because that was pretty much our only saving grace, because most of our writers are WGA writers as well. So we've been in strike with WGA for all of our projects that are in dev. Like Jedi 3 right now is like in limbo right now.
Right.
Also because Stig Asmussen is leaving, the game director for the Jedi series. Yeah. So that's been like a big deal for us. But so I've been very, 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 very busy. But I have two things I want to say. One is, of course, Star Wars. Star Wars for me, here's the main problem, and I think this is why there's such a huge division in our fandom. I think that anything that comes after post Return of the Jedi, if it doesn't have the Skywalkers, it just doesn't make sense. Period. Like I don't think there's the possibility to have Star Wars without the Skywalkers in some sense. I do include Han in that because he's married to Leia, right? And all of the books, whether they're canon or not, right, have always had this great story about Luke, Han, Leia, Lando all being heavily involved in the galaxy in post Return of the Jedi world. So like we are expecting to see that. Like I was coming into Ahsoka thinking we're going to see Leia, we're going to see Luke in some way. We got Anakin. That's great because, he is the Skywalker. But, I feel like for the story, he kind of doesn't make sense for this story. It would have made more sense to have Luke, and name dropping, Senator Organa is not enough. Like, we need those characters. We've got the actors. Bring back Alden Ehrenreich. Bring Donald Glover, Lando, right? You could get Sebastian Stan as Luke, or even the guy that played Luke in the Book of Boba Fett was close enough to pass for a younger Luke, right? Bring in Billy Lord as Leia, right? Let her take on her mother's mantle. I don't know why we can't have that recast, but it's fundamentally missing for me. Everything in this timeline is fundamentally missing for me because it doesn't tie back to what I know is going on in the world. Like, wouldn't it be great to see little Ben Solo, who right now in this timeline would be like 4 or 5 years old, running around in the background, in a hologram with Leia? I mean, that's a way to tie in the sequels. I know a lot of people don't like the sequels. I don't, for the majority, like a lot of the things in the sequels either. But, bringing it all together and making it, I think the prequel babies have gone ape shit. Sorry, ape doo-doo for Anakin's, reveal there. But, story-wise, and I loved his performance, right? But story-wise, in this timeline, Anakin kind of doesn't make sense.
Look, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I would say, again, though, I think that the Disney mandate, the corporate mandate is that they needed something that they could call theirs. The problem is they were buying something and they mess and again, this is I think how corporate decision making and corporate policy gets IP wrong. When they buy an IP like Star Wars, they don't do a detailed analysis of why has this IP been around for 45 years? Why do people love this IP? And there isn't a real, and they think from a corporate standpoint, like any good product, we just keep making this product. If we make this product, it will be good. But the thing is, when a product is a story, and you have these characters that are beloved characters that people have grown up with, how do you quantify what makes that story good or bad? A corporation couldn't tell you that. And so what they wanted was, we need in our, I'm sure that their mandate, like this was not a Lucasfilm mandate, this was a Disney mandate. They said, we want our own characters. We're going to do this. I know there's legacy characters. We'll have them in there and get rid of them. But what we want to do is we want to have our own new characters, which they could have done, I think, if they made that, if The Force Awakens was about our legacy characters, only about our legacy characters, dealing with the New Republic, and then the new characters were introduced
100%.
Underneath them, and we could have had those characters been anointed by our heroes. I mean,
100%.
it would have worked, you know. And when you did something like that, it was not only did they not do that, but Han and Leia weren't together.
Bastard.
Han doesn't have the Millennium Falcon, which is the dumbest shit ever.
Yeah.
Luke is not there. R2-D2's under a fucking tarp, you know, and well, we have to have BB-8.
Yeah.
Well, having BB-8, that is totally a corporate decision. This is not a Kathleen Kennedy decision.
A merchandising decision.
Yeah, and Disney's like, we need new characters. We can't sell more R2-D2s. Everybody already has R2-D2. We have to have a new BB-8. But the funny thing is, in order to have a BB-8 character that people love, BB-8's got to be a hero.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is if you think about R2-D2 as he is introduced in Star Wars, him and 3PO are walking down a corridor by the Imperials, and then R2 gets the plans for the Death Star put in him. So R2-D2 is the most fucking badass, important hero in the universe at that point.
100%.
And Leia's like, I'm giving this to you because I know you, R2-D2, are going to get this where it needs to go because you are a fucking hero. Which makes R2-D2 immediately and his manservant 3PO, who goes with him everywhere. But it's R2 when they're at Luke's in the garage. You know, well, I guess I'll take these restraining bolts off because I know you're too little to run away. Au contraire, what does R2-D2? He sets out across the desert to complete his mission. He's a badass, and he's one of the biggest heroes in Star Wars. And then when you see in The Force Awakens that he's literally under a tarp, I'm like, these motherfuckers don't know anything about Star Wars. I understand your idea but BB-8 should have been R2's Padawan.
Right.
That's what it should have been.
That. And then you love both, right? Then you really love BB-8.
And you could have had, first of all, you would have taken R2-D2 and you would have given him a character beat that he's never had. Because the idea of R2 being he's not a Jedi, he's an astromech master. He knows more about being an astromech droid. He's had more experiences. And the fact that now that astromech droids, because of why? Because Luke figured this shit out. Luke is like, you know what? Why aren't you training an entire division? Why aren't you an astromech master? Why isn't there an astromech temple where all of the astromech droids that come off the assembly line need to be trained by you? And if you were to turn, can you imagine if R2-D2 is shown with fucking BB-8 and then R2 is showing like, well, you know, if there's a problem with the hyperdrive and you're under attack, here's what you need to do. And it seems maybe silly, but then R2 is elevated in status and he's got a relationship with BB-8, and that you would immediately love BB-8 and R2 would show. And then, of course, you know, and I'm like, how do you not? Nope. What do? They R2. And by the way, all of these new versions of IPs are doing this to all their legacy characters. Star Trek's doing it to Spock.
Yep.
Let's make Spock terrible. Let's make him an idiot. Let's treat him like a child. Let's give him a mental disability. It's so disrespectful. So we can elevate whatever our new characters are. And it's so, the thing is, it's corporate thinking and it's bad writing.
Absolutely. And I think we need to get out of this time. Like, why do we have to stay in this timeline that is so convoluted with our legacy characters? Why can't we go forward? Like, that's why I'm doing the project I'm doing, which brings me to my next thing that I want to show you. I brought you a clip of our upcoming legacy trailer.
Wow.
Just scene 1. Okay. This is final animation.
Can you share? You can share your screen.
I can.
I've given Maria permission to share so she can do that right here as she finishes up.
I wanted to show it to you. It's just version 1 of the final animation. There's still a few little tweaks, but I did want to show you that and show everybody that. So here we go. Hopefully audio, let me see, share sound. Got it. Okay. Okay, so it's here. Okay, cool. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Can you open it?
No. Vishit won't make it that easy.
And that's just the first scene.
I'm already interested in that. I mean, give us something new. That's something new.
Actually, that's the expanded universe for anybody that's a diehard of the EU. That is Darth Malati and her new apprentice, which is so taking a cue from what you just said. I'm taking an established character, like giving her an apprentice, Darth Xanos, who is my creation, and he is a Sabrak. So
Wow, I mean, I'll watch that. And I think, another thing I don't understand is all of these legacy, again, Star Trek, Alien, Predator, all of these things had, whether it's novelists, whether it's comic book writers, people that really thought about these universes, have told these stories already. There's great Alien stories that Dark Horse told. Star Wars obviously was very well served by Dark Horse. The Star Trek novels have some great novels. They've got a whole new series of characters where they created all new series, like New Frontiers series, the Vanguard series, all these characters that were created from scratch, which were really well done. None of, like, Disney didn't do anything with those. And now Filoni is mining all of that EU stuff, but he's not doing it, I think, as good as it should be done. And it's fine. But it's weird because it was like, it's bizarre to me how they're treating Grand Admiral Thrawn, because he's not the Grand Admiral Thrawn that was depicted in Zahn's trilogy. He's a new version of Thrawn, and that trilogy that we first met him in didn't exist, never happened yet. It's kind of weird. So we're seeing these characters that have been borrowed from the EU that are then reconceptualized and reimagined, not by the people who created them, but by, like Dave Filoni. And it's weird. I think it's a weird way to go. And
they did it after decommissioning the EU, and basically now they're just kind of nitpicking through it. So
yeah, and the thing is, the people that wrote a lot of the best EU novels are really good. And unfortunately, the post Return of the Jedi universe compared to what we have now, the best of the books did it way better.
Totally. Yeah. All right.
And that's what's frustrating.
We got Kevin coming up. Kevin, you should be able to unmute now.
Hey, Rob.
What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Hanging in there.
You just mentioned that I'm getting ready to read the third book of the Bounty Hunting Wars, and it's takes place right after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Time. The first two have been good. Yeah. It's certainly a better story of Boba Fett in the show.
Well, and that's the whole. I mean, any story of Boba Fett would be better than the story they chose to tell us.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. What's really interesting to me is the final shot of Boba Fett and Fennec Shand sitting in the on the throne at the end of Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
The promise of that shot, the promise of what that was tremendous.
Yeah.
It was so badass. And you're like, oh, of course, there's this is great. And we didn't get any of that. The promise of just that imagery of him on his throne and running Jabba the Hutt's former empire. Again, if you were to look at any like Boba Fett, you should look at the great crime thrillers that were made. I would have gone and looked at Michael Mann's Heat. you know, and Collateral, and look at The Godfather, and look at all these Scarface. And I would have taken cues from that. The same way that
I was gonna say about like Star Wars is it's no longer taking other genres and putting them in the Star Wars version thing. They're just taking Star Wars and doing more Star Wars. So it's not very creative. It's kind of boring. But we've talked it to death. I think everybody knows what they like and don't like. But you know, before you got sniped a couple weeks ago, there was a couple things that I thought you might enjoy. Recommend. There was a documentary called Five Came Back. I don't know if you've seen that on Netflix. It's produced by Steven Spielberg, and it's about 5 directors during World War II.
Oh yes, I have seen that. I thought yes, I love that documentary.
It
like
was
William
really,
Wyler and
Ford, Houston, a couple others.
All these people that actually they shot things in World War II too.
Yes, yeah, they were,
and the footage is incredible.
Yeah, they were hired by the U.S. government to make documentaries and war stories, things like that, and it was pretty interesting. I enjoyed it. And then the other one that I thought you might like is you always mention that you got one foot in the grave. Is there is another documentary called The Blue Zone? I don't know if you've heard of that.
I have not.
And it's a documentary talking about I want to say 5 or 6 places around the world that have a high population of.
Just watched that with Elizabeth.
Yeah,
I didn't know what it was called, and one of those blue zones is right the city next to us.
Correct, and I know, and that's what made me think about it. And I was like, it like what they do isn't kind of new information, you know. Obviously, get out, do things, eat well, blah blah blah.
We should say that
I just thought it was really interesting.
What Kevin is talking about, the blue zones are where the people that have lived to be the longest around the world are.
Mm-hmm.
And why do they live there? I mean, and what about where they're living causes people to live that long? And literally, so where we are in Redlands, if you drive down Redlands Boulevard, it turns into Loma Linda.
Right.
And Loma Linda, where it has an incredible hospital and facility there, Loma Linda was founded by Seventh-day Adventists.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the Seventh-day Adventist community and the way they live their lives. And Elizabeth is an Adventist. She was raised an Adventist. Her mother's Adventist, and her father-in-law is an Adventist doctor who, by the way, who's 87 years old and is still traveling and goes to Switzerland Switzerland, Sweden. They just came back from Romania, where he's been working on a new rehabilitation center there. And the Adventists are they're amazing.
It was interesting, and they had a lot of I think it was the final episode. They kind of had a chart. Yep, there you go. RRM.
There you go.
They had a chart, and it shows kind of how the people they overlap with some of the stuff that they do, but each of them has kind of distinct things where they live that made it interesting. Like the island that was part of Greece, the reason why they lived the way they did, and then in Okinawa, and then it was just very interesting. The sad part was, what was it, in Peru or Chile? I forgot. And they said like now. This is like 20 years after he did the actual report or whatnot. It has actually really shrunk because of all the kind of Western stuff that has got in there, you know, bad food and kids now, you know, when you go to the grocery store, they showed it, you know, and you see all the aisles of sugary kind of foods instead of their natural foods. And that kind of got me to one of the last points. And it was, when you were mentioning earlier in your last couple of videos, you know, you were talking about education and stuff. And I as much as I want to make fun of younger kids and the younger population, I think we need to, as adults or as parents, we need to also take the blame for a lot of it, because we're the ones that actually, they're a product of what we're doing. And so I understand that kids need to want to do things, but sometimes if you don't engage with your kids, they're not going to do it. If you don't give them books, or if you don't get them outside, if you don't do certain things, they won't ever find, or they won't ever show any interest in it. And so that's when you start having problems. So I know it's easy to always make fun of the younger generation. I do too. I make fun of my son for some of the stupid crap they do. But when it comes to the education, a lot of it has to do with the parents and what we're doing to them, you know, and it's not going to change unless we do that as the adults. So.
Yeah, I mean, I look, I agree. And also, you know, these pieces that I've been doing on education, it's been interesting for me to see, because I had a public education. I grew up in I call it a privileged environment, but you know, at the time we didn't know that, and it wasn't nearly as privileged as it is now, but we had a great educational base, you know, and I think that now it's strange to me that our educational system is not because walking out into the world and having a general knowledge of things, it makes the world a much more interesting place to be, you know, and a lot of people walk out into the world and they don't see that, but if you have a general knowledge base, everywhere you go there's something interesting happening, whether it's people, whether it's a building, whether it's traffic, whatever, it's a plane flying overhead. A general base of knowledge makes the world we live in just more interesting, more engaging. And if you don't know those things, you're not engaged. And I think a lot of people, the lack of general knowledge of things has shut down people's enthusiasm for wanting to learn more things. And it's too bad.
Thank you, Kevin. Hey, Rob, we normally just reached the 2-hour mark, and we would normally shut things down here, but we only have about 4 or 5 more people, so I think it's okay to just keep the stream going, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's keep it going.
Okay, sounds good. We've got Victor coming up. Victor, you should be able to unmute.
Hello.
What's up, kid? I owe you money.
Yeah, I was away, and then I've been unwell, so I know I need to email you to get where to send it, and then
I can't wait. Thank you for doing that for me and getting me that disc.
That's all right. If there's anything else from over here you ever need, give me a shout if anything needs pre-ordering or anything. But
see, I have the lovely Emma Bannon, you know, that she's been hooking me up. But this was a different thing.
Yes, no, indeed. What should I start with? I had my faith in fandoms restored recently, which was quite nice. I've had, because some things get a bit unpleasant and some things get a bit thing, but I spent, 2 weekends ago, I was in Minneapolis for the 30th anniversary celebration of the X-Files.
Oh, I was going to add, yes. How did that go?
It was I wasn't sure because I didn't really know anybody going, and I went on my own, but it was really lovely to be kind of surrounded by people who all loved the same thing and who were all just really keen to talk to one another about it and just be really, it was quite nice to be like, wow, everybody's being really nice and listening to each other's views and just really welcoming and friendly to one another. It was quite refreshing. I was like, wow, can all fandom be like this all the time? So, and I did want to show you, if I can share my screen, I've got a couple of, I hate photos of me, but these are group photos, so I can cope with it when they're group photos, because then you can't see me. So there was a couple of photos that I had taken that I thought I'd share.
Please do.
Vic, I just gave it you the ability to share screen.
Yep. And I think, oh, here we go. So this is, I don't know if you can see that one. So
wow. Oh my God.
That was the characters one, although there was the Scully family and Mulder's mother were off doing a talk, which I don't know why they chose to schedule it then.
Wow, look at everybody. That's so cool.
That's the characters one, which was fun. And then the other one, which was the main reason I went actually, was the creatives one. So getting to meet kind of all the main kind of like Morgan and Wong and Darren Morgan and Chris and Bob. So that was pretty amazing. And they did a really good 2-hour kind of panel about making the show. And obviously they're not under the same restrictions as the actors were. So their panel was quite detailed about memories of filming specific episodes and things. So yeah, so that was my fabulous weekend.
Did Chris Carter say that any chance of doing another X-Files movie?
I mean, he didn't really. I know there was, because I kind of did a mid-level kind of pass, and I know there was the top level of access. They had lunch with him and Frank Spotnitz, and I know that they kind of asked other things, and I think the only thing he did mention is that reboot / revival / not quite sure what it is, because I don't think he could really say that Ryan Coogler is meant to be doing, is still kind of in it looks as though at the moment it's still meant to be happening, so I'm not quite sure about that. But
because that's the thing, you could call it X-Files the Next Generation, but there's no reason why you can't have a whole new team coming in.
I'd rather do that rather than pretending that the program. I wouldn't want it to be that the original program didn't exist, and it was almost like, oh, there's this new thing. That would really irritate me.
No, I mean, I think that the mythology, all that stuff should be there. It's always in the background. That way you can refer back to it. I mean, it's just people get older. What happens when skunk work projects for the military become old? They still happened. And I think it would be really interesting, especially like I was really disappointed in the two new seasons of X-Files, because here we are in a world that the X-Files prophesized would happen. We're living in a complete world of disinformation. There is no more truth. Everything is relative, and it should have been ripe for creating something that was really came down hard on where we are right now. And I thought it was, for the most part, just kind of a goof.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things. And to be fair, he did try and tackle it, although I don't think he convinced anybody really in the room. But most fans of the X-Files still don't like how it ended and some of the choices he made with regards to Scully and what is said to have occurred to Scully with her children. And he did try and justify his choices, but I'm not sure the room shifted to agree with him very much. But I mean, I think everybody who was there was kind of appreciative of the old era rather than the new era, I think. But,
sure.
But yeah, so that was that. And then I think the only other thing, I have all my London Film Festival tickets for the first couple of weeks of October. So I have got tickets for about 30 films, which might be a bit ambitious, but we will see how we go.
What are some of the highlights?
It's pretty good. We've got probably the best overall festival lineup, I think, because we've got like Maestro and Killers of the Flower Moon and Bike Riders and Holdovers, and we've got most of the big ones that are being talked about in the conversation for awards. So it should be pretty good. And then I think the only other thing I wanted to flag is, if you haven't already seen it, definitely watch Past Lives. It's still my favorite film of the year. I love Past Lives. It's so good.
It's funny that you say that.
Oh, is it in the physical media pile? It's not. It's only just out in the cinema here, so we're behind. Oh, I love it so much.
I haven't seen it. I just got it. Sorry, that was a preview of Let's Get Physical Media tomorrow. But yes, I have my stack of discs. Pretty good stack this week. Pretty good stack. Gotta say.
But yeah, no, I love that film, and she worked in theatre, and this is like her debut kind of film. And to say it's her first directorial debut for film, I just think it's an incredible film. I thought it was beautiful.
Can't wait to see
I look forward to hearing what you think about it.
I can't wait.
And that's it. I will be on the stream for Physical Media tomorrow. So
all right.
Until next time.
All right. Bye-bye. So good to see you. Hey, listen, I'll be back in 60 seconds. 60 seconds. I'm back. Hello, Tom.
Sorry, Rob. I had your stormtrooper persona up on screen while you were gone. So we got Tom Jr. Jackson coming up now. Tom, you should be able to unmute. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I can. How are you,
Rob.
good sir? How's it going?
I'm very, very good. I'm doing very well. I've been hanging out on another channel called Ray Lytle's Morning Disaster. They do trivia. I won trivia the other night.
Wow.
And I hang out there with Irene. We hang out in the chat. I'll tell you, it's every morning at like 9 a.m.
That's East Coast
so
time.
it'll be like 9 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Central. And it's very much like a morning type radio type show.
Mm-hmm.
But it's on YouTube. And there's this one guy who basically, how can I say it? What will he say today is basically why we watch. This guy has no filter and has admitted to things that probably he shouldn't be admitting to. But we have a blast. We have a blast. And I'll have to find one of the episodes and send it to you, Rob. It is something that you'd be like, what is this? Why are you sending this to me? And then by the end, you'll be like, what the hell was that?
That's hilarious.
And Irene and I have a great time over there. They love Irene over there, but they love me. The host wants to do a show with me at some point. Yeah, so I've been doing good with that. I recently saw, let me think, I saw the Big Fat Greek Wedding. I just saw Haunting in Venice.
What did you think of those?
Which I liked. I liked Haunting in Venice. That was fun. And there was some little changes from the actual original story. But the Agatha Christie estate said that was fine. They had no problem with it. They didn't understand it at first, but then when they saw it, they were like, okay, this fits well. I had to say, a lot of the movies that I've seen this summer all make me want to go to either Greece or Italy.
Yeah. Yes. Did you see Equalizer 3?
Yeah.
Didn't that make you want to go to Italy?
That just made me want to go to Italy, sit in one of those little plazas, have a nice little bowl of pasta.
Yeah.
Just watch the day go by. Oh, yeah. Yeah, last night I actually watched I, Frankenstein again.
That was all right.
And I haven't watched that in a long time. And I watched it in 3D, and that movie really does hold up.
Yeah.
Pretty well, yeah. But I've been recently watching a lot of William Friedkin doing Q&As.
Oh yeah, his Q&As are great.
And him talking about cruising and where that came from. And where it came from one of the guys that worked on The Exorcist. The guy who plays
the cop. Yeah.
He was a real technician that worked with the doctor when they're giving Reagan
yep. Who turned out to be a murderer.
And it turned out he was a murderer. Yeah. And I didn't know that. And I'm watching him talk about this. I'm like, what? So kind of like you could watch Exorcist and then Cruising and go, The Exorcist is a prequel to Cruising.
I mean, yes, theoretically, yeah. Cruising is an interesting film. When I saw it the first time, my father insured Jerry Weintraub, who produced the movie, insured like his cars and stuff, and insured his concerts West business. And my dad's like, I'm going to take you to see and I was really excited because, from the director of The Exorcist and Sorcerer. And I think I was 12 or 13 when I saw it. And my dad, that's the
only movie that would watch over is Sorcerer. He would not watch any of his other films. Sorcerer is the only film that he would watch over and over if he could.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
But when I saw Cruising, my dad's like, he wanted to leave. He was so uncomfortable. I'm like, no, we can't leave. Come on.
And how old were you when you saw that?
I was like 12 or 13, I think.
I got you beat. I was 3. I saw Magic.
Oh, yeah, I certainly didn't understand. My dad had a little bit of explaining to do about the whole leather daddy subculture. And of course, my dad wasn't exactly the most knowledgeable person about it.
Well, and what really blew my mind about it is that Friedkin would go to those clubs and he knew people that owned them and he clubs.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get the whole feel of it, the vibe, and he loved the music. And someone at one of the Q&A said that they saw the guy from Wang Chung. He goes, I love Wang Chung. I haven't talked to that guy in a long time. I love them. And he was a riot. He really had fun with those Q&As.
Oh, well, that's when I first met him when I was at USC. And he would come, there was the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films, and he would come down and speak at those events. And they were always at USC, and it was always packed. And he was really, really nice. I mean, he was a lot of fun to talk to, and I think he liked sharing his knowledge. And, he had a really interesting career because in the beginning of his career, I think what was The French Connection is like third movie, and the guy wins Best Director and Best Film for the Academy Awards. And then his movie after that was The Exorcist. And suddenly, he's on top of the world. And then his next movie.
Did you know Hitchcock directed The Exorcist?
Yeah. Yeah. That
would have been an interesting version of that movie.
Yeah. I think it would have been very different. But, Friedkin, after he made Sorcerer, his career never recovered. So he really peaked in 73 with The Exorcist, and I love Sorcerer. I think Sorcerer is a terrific film, but in terms of his career, and he's a guy that had to, navigate those waters. He continued to make movies, but I think that everyone sort of looked at him after Sorcerer and his big folly, because if that movie had not opened when it opened, if it had not opened in the week of Star Wars, the week after, and it had runway free and clear to navigate, I think Friedkin's career would have been different, because Sorcerer, which was his big passion project that he threw everything into, it derailed his career forever because it was a box office failure because of Star Wars. And we are friends on Twitter. We used to occasionally have a back and forth on Twitter, and I wanted to sit down and interview him, but I never got to do that. And I think I wanted to ask him that question. I don't know if he would have answered it, because I even read his biography, his autobiography that he wrote, and he even left out. He doesn't even mention making The Guardian, the horror movie The Guardian that he made for Universal. He didn't even talk about that in his autobiography. And it's because I guess he was ashamed of it or something. And I like The Guardian.
Yeah, it's kind of a fairy tale. It's like a modern fairy tale, The Guardian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I imagine, I've always looked at him. I mean, he's like a hero of mine, but also I've always looked at his career and thought, what is it like to be somebody, and within 10 years of you starting your feature film career, you make The Boys in the Band, which was a gay themed play that he turned into a movie. And at the time he did, it was pretty groundbreaking. And then you go on and you do a few other, he'd made some great documentary movies, and then you make French Connection and win the Academy Award. And then after that, you make Exorcist. I mean, you're one of the hottest movie makers ever in history. And then after that, never again. Sorcerer came out in 77. And then, he passed away this year in 2023. And he still has a movie coming out.
He does.
The trailer came out this week, the
Caine Mutiny.
The Caine Mutiny Court Martial.
Yeah.
Which he's updated to the modern, to relatively, 30 years ago, but it looks great. Can't wait.
All right, we got Pedro coming up here. Welcome, Pedro. You should be able to unmute.
Hello.
What's up, man? What's going on with you?
I'm just kind of a bit fed up with my life, with all the trolls and stuff like that. So, just keeping things going. But yeah,
you can always just turn it all off. Turn it off. No more trolls.
That's true. If they didn't keep talking about me. But no, anyway, but that's part of my problems anyway. So how have you been?
Busy, just trying to keep things balls in the air. It's tough, but you know, it's fun. The days go by so fast.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to slow things down a little bit, pump the brakes, but you know, that's not really an option, unfortunately. But that's okay.
Yeah, I saw I saw that short, that Star Trek short thing, the bogey episode, the snot
Oh my
episode.
God.
That's official. But well, I mean, yeah, it's a thing. I was just going to say, I know obviously you probably done a whole rant already about the plot and everything, but I think that also what really pissed me off was the fact that in terms of the presentation, it was lacking it was lacking kind of a thought that went into it. It wasn't, they didn't really think it through.
You can say that again.
I say this because they decide to base the art style on Star Trek, the animated series, which makes jack shit sense because the Next Generation came out in the 80s.
Right, but what they're doing is they're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the animated series.
Which doesn't make sense if you're taking characters from other eras. So my feeling is that you have a show that was made in 1987 to 1994, and then and I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, there's one other TV show that was made from 1987 to 1994, actually ran a few years past that, actually into 96. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't you use Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles art style? Because if you're going to use TNG, would it not be better to reflect the era that it was made in? I mean, it was right there. It was such an obvious thing that they could have done. But of course,
there's no connection between Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Star Trek. I mean, there's no other than the fact that that would be like saying, why not make something that is like a soap opera from that era, or make something like a drama like LA Law, you know? I mean, just because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was an animated show that aired concurrently, there's no connection between the two. Like, why not pick another animated show? Why Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Because Paramount controls it, you know?
Yeah. In terms of what I'm saying is that they didn't research the era. They just thought,
well, I think they're coming at it from a different perspective. I mean, they're going.
Yeah.
It was, but here's the thing that I really objected to, aside from the fact that it was stupid and puerile. That episode shows, I can't even believe I'm speaking about it in these kind of terms, but that episode shows our characters beaming down to a planet that has achieved warp capability.
Yeah.
And in it, they go down there, and because they're so disgusted by the customs of this alien race, they blow up the alien race's warp drive and leave.
I know.
It is
and thought into it. Yeah.
Well, it's the most un-Star Trek thing in the world. If I had directed that episode, and I had to direct that episode, and I had to make people putting boogers all over the place, Riker should have pulled a big snot rocket out of his nose and done exactly what they were doing. He might have thought it was disgusting, but it would show that he's empathetic, and they would have, brought them into the fold.
Or what they could have done, here's an even better idea. What they could have done was not just done it.
Well, yeah. No, I think these short treks are it's very telling. It's very the people that make Star Trek now do not take Star Trek seriously as a serious, dramatic, or thoughtful program. No. Everything they've made, whether it's Discovery, whether it's Strange New Worlds, especially, it's all they are all Star Trek is, they're looking down their nose at Star Trek. They only see it as something campy and old and something to update. Yeah. And that's true of Lower Decks. The only thing that comes remotely close is Prodigy. Prodigy does not thumb its nose, while I object to it because it's not about human beings necessarily. I understand they were going for that Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, whatever. At least Prodigy made an attempt to stay within the universe or try and make a serious go of it. Whereas I think modern Star Trek to me is absolutely abhorrent, because I can't believe that the people that own the IP have allowed what's been done to Star Trek. By the way, since 2009, no one's taken it seriously. No one's looked at it as a.
By it. They're
yeah, they are.
By it. So that's what.
Yeah, and yes, they make fun of everything, and it's gross, frankly.
Yeah.
And I think that they have taken a franchise from a monetary perspective and killed it. If you look at people who are saying, well, Star Trek 09 and they did not make money. Those movies, especially Star Trek Beyond, did not make money. Everyone thinks they made a lot of money. They did not. And I don't know why they've allowed the people that run the Star Trek franchise to Star Trek should be on the level of House of the Dragon, but it's not.
I mean, it's like I was saying in the chat, and I know Maria's probably not happy with me dissing modern Star Wars, but the only reason they're remastering Dark Forces is because the people at modern Lucasfilm are so clueless, they don't realize that Dark Forces contradicts modern Star Wars. So that's the only reason that Night Dive Studios managed to get approval to release it.
Well, also that the game probably did pretty well, so they're looking at numbers going, well, and they probably had people request it.
Yeah. So I'm just in a bit of a competitive mood because I'm a bit fed up with things. So.
You're not wrong. I mean, I'm a little disappointed. If anyone watched Midnight Musings last night, I read a letter from Tony Oliver, who I hoped would be here, and Tony's not here today. But he wrote me another letter, not the one I read last night, but a new one, and he's all mad at me because I said there are no new filmmakers, and the amount of technology that exists, we should see a whole bunch of new filmmakers, and he's mad that I even said that because he fancies himself a filmmaker. He wrote me another letter where he uses lots of disrespectful language and all that. I'm like, Tony, if you want to be a filmmaker, go be a filmmaker. Don't look at me. I'm being a filmmaker. I do my own thing, but show me your movie. Talk's cheap. Go make a movie. Anyway.
Joey Hamilton coming up next. Joey, you should be able to unmute now.
Hey, Rob.
What's going on, dude? How have you been?
Busy. Saving the world.
How are the Bills doing?
I don't know. We'll see. I didn't have that high. My expectations went kind of after the way last year.
I don't mean to rub any salt in the wound. I just thought, I worry about you. I worry about your whole city.
Yeah, well, that's what happens with the expectations.
I know.
My whole life, it was like a joy if they even we're in playoff contention, and then it becomes like Super Bowl or bust. You better win, and then every week is just like, why didn't you win by more? And then when they lose, it's like a shock. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Other things going on in the world. So
there certainly are.
Yeah.
Yes, there are.
Just take it as entertainment, and you'll be much happier.
Yeah, and if you look at everything through a lens of bemusement, just be bemused.
I feel like that gets you a little detached from things.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's good to have a certain amount of emotional investment, but if it becomes like you're in a bad mood when your sports team loses,
yeah, no, it's true.
And yeah, that happens to a lot of Buffalonians. So.
I don't mean to laugh.
Well, I mean, who are you root for? Seahawks?
Seahawks, man.
You've got an easier path.
Yes, I mean, we'll see what I think the Seahawks can do.
Aaron Rodgers is out, so that was like the big story of the offseason was that we're going to be competing for the division. So
I feel that that was terrible.
Well, I mean, I didn't even. Yeah, I was watching the game. The hype leading up to the game was all about Aaron Rodgers, and it was just all over in a few minutes, and it was just like.
I mean, I just feel terrible. I feel terrible about it. I feel terrible for him. I feel terrible for the team. I feel terrible because you want the NFL is only as good as how competitive and fun it is.
Yeah.
You know, and you want the competition, you want the great players to be there. You wanted to see the story of Aaron Rodgers play out over the course of the season. You know, I was really anticipating that was going to be fun. And so none of what happened made me feel good. And I feel bad.
Yep. Almost as bad as I felt when they beat us anyway.
Yeah, well, there is that.
Anyhow, yeah, so I haven't really been a part of these in months. Been busy, so
No, it's okay. Yeah, no, it's good to see you. And I haven't been doing the late night shows either. Like
I wouldn't have known. I mean, so in the time when the last time I think I even was a part, watching and stuff, I was in my editing season, so I was up a lot. Because you do those like really late, because it's late for you, but it's like 3 in the morning when you start, or when I think you start at midnight my time. So when those like 7-hour shows would happen, it would be like all the way to morning. Which sometimes anytime I've been on that, I've been so tired because it was like the whole end of the day, and I would be like fighting to stay awake. But we would usually have pretty spirited conversations, so it would, stimulate you.
Yeah, well, it was good. I mean, to be honest, I just kind of stopped drinking alcohol. Not for any reason. I was becoming. Look, I admit it. I'm a functioning alcoholic. I love booze, but I was just drinking too much. So I just decided to stop drinking. That's hence the water. But don't worry, I'll get back on the sauce and I'll do the late night rando shows. I just figured I needed a cleanse. I needed to get into shape because I have too much work going on. I have too much stuff going on. I need to keep the energy levels up. And it's funny, when I purge myself of it takes like 2 or 3 weeks just drinking, pounding the water, and I can't hold my liquor at all. I drank at Comic-Con and I was like, oh my God, I'm hammered. I can't even function.
Yeah, I have very little of any substance. Like I don't take much medicine. I try not to have too much dependency on caffeine. So if I have caffeine, it usually works, does its job very well. But no, I think like if you bring those back, I'll probably, I'll stay back, and because it's good when you meet new people, it's it was 2 new people who you've never met, and it's fun talking to you. But I think that show works best when you get totally different people with different perspectives. And
I totally agree,
especially if they're really good, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's fun. And I like doing that stuff. I've been so busy, and I've been going getting up early and stuff just because I've involved in so many different things that have to be.
Yeah, well, my schedule. So I have more responsibilities in the daytime. I used to be able to have a little bit more of a, full control of my schedule. So like if I was editing at night, I could get up at 11 o'clock and it wouldn't be a problem. But now I've got meetings and stuff at like 8, 9. So I have to keep more to that, like go to bed at 8. I'm not 8. I mean like 11. 11 or midnight about. So, but those are fun to watch back. They're usually good conversations, and when you bring on the randos, you get into some more cerebral topics, and
it's pretty fun.
Go kind of haywire.
Yeah, so. But that'll come back.
Yeah.
Come back.
All right. Well, I will let you go. I give you an extra minute of time to.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
And we've got our last caller. It's good to see her too. She's always got something interesting to say. So, it's good to see you, Joey. And I hope the Bills. I hope they do well. We'll know tomorrow, or maybe today. Are they playing today? Tomorrow. So there we go. And I guess modesty.
We got modesty coming up. So let me go.
Modesty Corto Maltese will take us home.
Reset my clock here, and let's go ahead and get modesty in here. So, modesty, you should be able to unmute now. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm fine. I've been away for almost 2 months, so I wasn't participating in anything. So I'm back now.
Did you go someplace interesting?
All over Europe. The whole round, it was great. But anyway, summer's gone. This is the first day of autumn. Reality check, everyone. I have a question for you. I don't want to waste your time because I'm the last in this row.
I don't think you could ever waste my time.
Thank you so much. You're very kind. I have been watching Ahsoka and I want to love it. I'm determined to love it, but I have a problem loving it, although I really want to. And one of the problems I'm having with it is not the obvious one that is a part of an ongoing cultural war. My problem is, and I want your opinion as video editor, I believe that Filoni is approaching the whole thing visually as a comic book.
I
Or a
couldn't agree with you more.
And just the way he shoots is doing it is not cinematic enough. And it's taking me out of the whole story. This whole story about the witches and everything. It's great. It's kind of spiritual. It brings, richness to the lore. But I always go back to Alec Guinness in The New Hope. The way he speaks, the way the music follows him, there is something mystical about him. And when he says, these are not the droids you're looking for, we know something is up. But
Right.
we have 3 witches that are framed like 3 dolls in a shop.
That's a very good point. Look, I think what happens is, so Dave Filoni's first, he started directing episodes of Mandalorian. That was the first. I think here's what's happening. I think with a lot of these shows, they have a lot of directors that don't have a lot of. They're giving, like Bryce Dallas Howard directed, like the first time she ever directed live action was Mandalorian. And so we have a lot of these directors, and Filoni is one of them, who just don't have a lot of experience, and they don't think cinematically.
Absolutely not.
And they're thinking in terms of, like, the reason they think like a comic book is because it's storyboarded.
Yeah. It's like watching the storyboard and not the final product.
Yes.
And it's like that moment when that witch, before they move to the next galaxy, when she is dealing with that orb, and then that orb turns into the galaxy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do so many things with only that shot to give it this mysticism. And it's not there. And it really, really annoys me. Really.
I'm with you 100%. And it shows, I mean, here's the thing. Everybody thinks, here's something else too. There's no blocking in that show. It's like people, and what I mean is, like, no one's walking around each other when they're talking, and there's no, and here's a telltale sign. You can always tell when people are experienced directors or not. If you pull the camera back far, and if you push the camera in close, like you get in close into someone's face, we don't see much of that. And to me, experienced directors, it's a quick, easy way to add more production values. You get in the Sergio Leone, a person's eyes are spread out across the entire gigantic frame. And the way there's no blocking. You never see scenes where characters, I mean, one of the most obvious great examples of blocking and exposition is in Indiana Jones, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when Indiana Jones is talking to Denholm Elliott and he's packing to go off to find the Lost Ark. That scene is a great scene of exposition where the camera is constantly moving close and pulling away, and there's not a lot of editing in that scene, and it conveys all of this information because the camera's moving and the way Harrison Ford's moving. There's all of this blocking, but that requires, you have to understand that. You have to inherently understand how to block. But when
I was just thinking about Indiana Jones, and I was like, can Filoni must know Spielberg. It's not, he must know him personally. He spent half of his life with Lucas, and they're all friends. So I mean, if you have such a task to do, can't you just rewatch stuff and
Well,
learn
I
and
think
ask these people if you know, or just don't do it. If you can't do it, don't do it. There are so many people coming out of film schools who understand language of the cinema. Filoni can produce, he can do whatever, but it's just not, you know, it loses so much. And I'm not going to go into a very convenient Sabine finds Ezra within 5 minutes
Yeah.
plot. But that aside, with the mysticism of the whole situation that we don't feel at all.
No, I agree. And I think that's a
Really
big
bad.
problem. There's no feeling evoked. Obviously, it's a Filoni's coming out of. Animation is all, you look at a storyboard, you look at it cut together. And to be honest, you know, you look at Japanese animation, there's a lot of dynamic stuff that happens in animation. There's a lot of really interesting camera work, and there's a lot of really interesting perspective changes. We in America don't have that kind of dynamism in a lot of our animation. And I think that he's used to looking at a storyboarding it all out. And the thing about storyboards are great, but if that's what you're used to, you're looking at individual frames, you're not thinking that cinema is movement. You know, when a camera is locked off, that to me that's more like an and or a but or an of, if you're right. It's a conjunction. You know, in a sentence, it's a conjunction. Real cinema is you keep that camera moving. You know,
And
you
not
show
only
us.
that, you know, it's audio and video together. You have to have these musical moments that go with the voice. And when Ray Stevenson talks, he really talks in this mystical way, but he lacks the underbed of music and the whole feel. It's such a missed opportunity, because then people wouldn't complain so much about the script or this or that, because they would be kind of taken into this mystical land. And we see the wolves howling, but we don't hear them howling. It's like they're there, but we can't hear anything. And it's like, you know, I rather like the voices of the witches. I rather like that. That was one moment that was like, oh, finally something is happening here. But then, you know, it's gone. And I'm like, why are these people being paid so much money? This is ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah, I think you've really nailed a big problem with a lot of these shows. You know, there's a lot of people, and also one of the things with television is unlike feature films, the directors are basically traffic cops. They call them traffic cops, where the directors come in and direct these shows, but then the producers put them together in the edit bay. I mean, the directors usually on TV can participate and they deliver their cut, and then they leave. And then it's the producers that go and finish these shows. And it's Dave Filoni's show, and I just don't think Dave Filoni has a lot of experience. He knows animation, but I think the show's really suffered because of it, because of the people finishing it just don't have a lot of feature film experience. And Star Wars is inherently a feature film franchise, so there's no reason why it shouldn't all be. And also that because they're shooting on the volume, they're limited by what kind of camera moves they can make. So that's another problem with the way the show is made. Unlike, say, Andor, which doesn't have that problem. So,
thank you so much, Modesty, Rob. We've come to the end, but we do have some super chats. I didn't want to forget to thank our folks for doing those before we went. So we have Jir Maninen. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing.
Oh yeah,
it
from Finland. In Finland.
But €2. The new novel project sounds great. Happy weekend. So
thank you.
That's referring to the radio
the Nathan
drama.
Heller books.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got Irene saying Chuck Norris won a game of Connect 4 in 3 moves. That's a good one. I like.
That's a good one. I love that.
The Chuck Norris jokes. And then Maria Espino came in with with 3 super chats at $5 each, so $15 worth of super.
Oh my God,
chats
Maria.
here. So she starts off, Rob, forgot to mention the TV series that is a companion to our films will have mixed media episodes. Some are 3D, some are live comics, etc. And she continues. So some of the episodes will be done as fully performed audio dramas recorded with all actors there. I love that you're doing that. And then finally,
Yes.
The TV series will tell the story between our films, since those are set with a 10-year story gap. Our studio is for hire, by the way.
Oh.
All right. So
I don't know where they're located.
Making a pitch for you there, Rob. So that concludes our super chats, and that concludes our stream for today.
Yes, I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. Thank you very much for that. It keeps it possible for me to participate in other projects. And yeah, so that's great. It's great to have these calls and to see everybody. It's wild. We've been doing it for so long. I've seen people come, go, come back. It's always good to see everyone. So I'm glad we got to keep doing these. They're loads of fun. So thank you, and thanks, Roberto, for making these calls possible.
Yeah, my
Tom
pleasure.
Jr. Jackson, thank you for being a goof person and for being a great moderator.
Anything else coming up today? Is there a physical media show tomorrow, Rob?
There's a physical media show tomorrow. I was thinking about doing a show today, if nothing else other than to read the new letter from Tony Oliver,
Okay.
complaining about me and all that. But yeah, because I'm kind of I'm really redoing in here. I always say I'm redoing in here, but I really am redoing in here to make this more. I want to turn everything. It's been because this place is also not just the Rob Observatory. It's also a repository of crap. There's all these boxes.
It's the observatory and it's the repository.
It's yes. And I have to bring everything. I have nothing in the house. The only thing I have in the house of mine is the home theater system.
Right.
I've been completely excommunicated of having. There's like one action figure there's my Matt Damon from The Martian action figure, or as they call it, Mars Rescue. That because I was putting batteries in it, so I have to move that. Otherwise, it's going to be put in a closet somewhere. I'm like, where'd that thing go?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing there's nothing. It's all in here, and I'm trying to between the models I'm building, the part works kits and just everything. And I just figured out there's some there's new IKEA furniture. I can actually it's not new, it's old, but there's a way I can configure it to give me more space in here, which is great. So I have to figure that one out.
Adventures in Furniture Assembly. So
there you go.
All right, Rob. Well, we will see you, if not tonight, definitely tomorrow, and continuing through the week. And then we'll be back with another members-only chat in a couple of weekends. So
all right.
We'll see you
Thank
then.
you, everybody.
Yep. Until next time.
And until next time. Every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen.
Bye, everyone.